Fly this plane and I'll marry you, Jonathan Mitchell sneered at the black woman cleaning his company's hangar. He was joking, at least for him. I'll bet $1,000 she doesn't even know where the ignition is, he added, laughing and pointing. Jonathan was the CEO of Mitchell Aviation. He'd just lost a silly bet to his partners about who could nail a landing. Feeling bruised, he needed someone to ridicule. Diana Santos, 34, kept wiping the office windows and ignored the men's cheap jokes. 2 years in that hangar had taught her how cruel pilots and rich bosses could be. Still, something in Jonathan's voice that morning sparked something in her. "Hey, you!" Jonathan shouted, tapping the glass. "Come here." Diana set the cloth on the cart and walked over, folding herself into the respectful posture she'd practiced for years. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell. My friends and I were talking about natural talent for flying," he said, motioning to the men watching with smirks. "Have you ever flown an airplane?" "One time, sir," Diana answered plainly, leaving out the part that she'd flown many times, and not in small planes. The men laughed. "Perfect," Jonathan said. "I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Fly my jet to Seattle and back without killing me, and I'll marry you." The room erupted in laughter. To them, the idea of a cleaning woman flying a $20 million jet was absurd. Diana looked down for a beat, then lifted her head. Her eyes were steady. "I accept," she said. The hangar went quiet. Jonathan blinked, stunned. "What? Are you serious?" He stammered, then turned to his friends. "Guys, look. This is historic. The cleaning lady who's going to teach us about aviation." They laughed harder. Richard Blackstone, a luxury car dealer there with them, already pictured the story at his club. Remember when he almost married the cleaning lady? What they didn't know was Diana's secret. She'd served 12 years in the Air Force. She'd flown F-16 fighters and huge C-130 cargo planes, aircraft far more complicated than Jonathan's jet. That part of her life stayed private, hidden under uniforms and silence. Jonathan, wiping tears from laughing, decided to raise the stakes. "If you take off without turning my plane into scrap, I'll pay for your college. But if you fail, you promise never to set foot in this hangar again." Those words hit Diana hard. She needed this job. Her 10-year-old daughter, Leia, depended on her. Diana's heart tightened as Jonathan laid out the cruel terms. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not with her 10-year-old daughter Leia battling chronic asthma. Every paycheck went straight into doctor visits, inhalers, and medicine that kept her little girl breathing. "I accept the terms," Diana said, her calm voice hiding the storm inside. Jonathan grinned and pulled out his phone. "Perfect. This is going online. CEO challenges cleaning lady, fly or be fired. It'll go viral in hours." Diana closed her eyes for a moment and remembered her commander's words from the Air Force. "Soldier, in the air you're not man or woman, black or white. You're pure competence. And competence doesn't lie." "When do we leave, Mr. Mitchell?" she asked, opening her eyes with a resolve that made him pause before regaining his swagger. "Right now," he said. "My friends will be watching from the VIP lounge while you try not to kill us." As they walked toward the jet, Diana noticed the registration number, N478 Alpha Mike. It was the exact same model she had flown during missions in Afghanistan. She knew it inside out, every bolt, every system. "I'll put 50 grand on it," Richard scoffed. "She won't even start the engines." "You're on," another businessman laughed. "She probably can't even drive a car." But as Diana climbed the steps into the jet, her posture shifted. Every move became sharper, more deliberate. The woman they thought was just a cleaner was fading. The elite pilot she had once been was stepping forward again. Their taunts no longer hurt, they fueled her. She had flown through sandstorms, landed on destroyed runways, and saved lives under enemy fire. She had buried that part of herself for years, but sitting in that cockpit brought it rushing back. Her hands slid over the controls with the ease of a pianist touching the keys after years away. The layout was almost identical to the military aircraft she once commanded. Every dial and switch spoke a language she knew by heart. "Look at her," Jonathan chuckled from outside, phone in hand. "She doesn't even know how to switch on the air conditioning." But Diana wasn't fumbling. She was running a precise pre-flight check: hydraulics, fuel levels, electrical systems, engine pressure. Muscle memory took over. This wasn't a guessing game. It was second nature. Mr. Mitchell, a voice interrupted. It was Tom Rodriguez, the hangar's chief mechanic and a Navy veteran. He had been watching closely. "What is it, Tom?" Jonathan asked, annoyed. "It's the way she's doing that checklist," Tom said, his voice tight. "That's not luck. That's training. Military training. Look how she's adjusting the flight compensators. That's standard Air Force procedure." Jonathan rolled his eyes. "Come on, Tom. She's a cleaning lady, not a pilot. Maybe she's seen a few movies." But inside the cabin, Diana slipped on the headset and spoke into the radio with crisp authority, her voice steady and professional as it carried over the control tower frequency. "Dallas Executive Tower, this is Golf Juliet 937 requesting clearance for takeoff. Destination Seattle, route Victor 15, cruising altitude 35,000 feet. Tom froze. His face went pale. "Jonathan, she just filed a full flight plan. That's professional aviation language. No cleaning lady knows that." "Golf Juliet 937, clearance granted," the tower responded. "Wind west at 12 knots. Runway 28 left clear for takeoff." Diana's reply came instantly, crisp and flawless. "Roger, tower. Golf Juliet 937, runway 28 left. Wind west at 12 knots confirmed. Thank you." The laughter faded. Richard Blackstone stopped smirking. "Jonathan, maybe we should rethink this. She sounds like she actually knows what she's doing." "She doesn't," Jonathan snapped, though the doubt in his voice betrayed him. "Beginner's luck, that's all." Just then, the engines roared to life. The smooth rise of the turbines shook the hangar. Everyone instinctively stepped back. Diana hadn't just switched them on, she had executed a perfect start sequence, every sound precise, every movement controlled. "My God," Tom whispered. "Jonathan, stop this. Whoever she is, she's not ordinary." But Jonathan's pride was a cage he couldn't escape. "I'm not backing down to an employee. If she wants to pretend she's a pilot, let her." By now, dozens of employees had gathered outside, drawn by the thunder of engines and the shocking sight of Diana in the cockpit of the company's $20 million jet. Among them was Lisa Chun, a young aerospace engineer fresh out of college. She knew Diana from coffee breaks. "Does Diana actually know how to fly?" Lisa asked nervously. "She doesn't just know," Tom said, eyes locked on the jet. "She flies like someone who's done this for years. She doesn't even think about it. Her body just knows." Inside the cockpit, Diana let her memories flood back. Her first combat flight at 22, delivering medical supplies under fire. The adrenaline, the fear, the weight of lives depending on her. And her last mission, the accident that wasn't her fault, but convinced her to walk away and raise her daughter in safety. She had thought those days were gone. But here, with the controls under her hands again, she realized nothing had left her. Every skill, every instinct was intact. "Diana," Tom's voice came through her headset. "You don't need to prove anything to these fools. If you want to stop, I'll back you up." She smiled faintly, her eyes set with iron resolve. "Thanks, Tom. But they gave me a chance to remember who I really am. And they have no idea what they've just awakened." Jonathan marched up and knocked on the cockpit glass. "Enough. Shut it down now." Diana turned her gaze on him. For the first time, Jonathan faltered. In her eyes he saw not defiance, not anger, but absolute certainty. The unshakable confidence of someone who was about to change everything. She picked up the microphone. Her voice boomed through the hangar speakers, steady, calm, commanding. The external speakers crackled to life. "Gentlemen, fasten your seat belts. You're about to learn what happens when you underestimate the wrong person." At the back of the hangar, Lisa Chun quickly pulled out her phone. She sent a text to the emergency contact listed in Diana's HR file. The reply came almost instantly. "My mother was Captain Diana Santos, decorated by the U.S. Air Force. If anyone doubts her, they're about to learn a lesson they'll never forget." The engines roared louder as Diana taxied down the runway. Her movements were flawless, measured, precise, completely professional. Mechanics stopped in their tracks to watch. "My God," Richard Blackstone whispered, fear replacing arrogance. "Jonathan, she really knows what she's doing." "That's impossible," Jonathan muttered, clutching his phone. His earlier bravado was gone. "Anyone can taxi in a straight line. It's just luck." Then Diana's voice echoed from the loudspeakers, "Dallas Executive Tower, Golf Juliet 937 ready for takeoff. Requesting immediate departure clearance. Standard tactical flight profile." Tom Rodriguez nearly choked. "Did you hear that? Tactical profile, that's military jargon. Civilians don't use that." "Golf Juliet 937, tactical profile approved," the tower responded. "Safe flight, Captain." The hangar fell silent. Jonathan's phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. "What did he just call her?" he asked, stunned. "Captain," Tom said, eyes wide with respect. "The tower just called her Captain." At that moment, Lisa ran forward, holding her phone like proof in a trial. "Jonathan, I spoke to her daughter. Diana Santos isn't a cleaning lady. She's Captain Diana Santos, decorated, U.S. Air Force. 12 years of active duty, 3 combat tours in Afghanistan." Jonathan's face drained of color. He finally grasped the enormity of his mistake. "She flew F-16s on combat missions," Lisa continued, reading from her phone. C-130 transports in war zones. Twice decorated for bravery. She saved dozens of lives under fire. Then the jet lifted off. But Diana didn't just take off, she performed. The plane climbed in a flawless curve, smooth and powerful. Then, as the stunned crowd watched, she executed maneuvers no one thought possible in a luxury jet. Rolls, sharp banks, elegant dives. She flew it like it was a fighter. "Jesus Christ," Richard whispered, craning his neck to follow her. "She's flying that jet like it's an F-16. Jonathan stood frozen, paralyzed as his $20 million aircraft danced across the sky under the command of the very woman he had mocked. Every move was a direct strike against his arrogance. Then Diana's voice came over the radio, calm, confident, absolute. "This is Captain Santos. Flight test complete. All systems operational. Returning to base. ETA. 17 minutes. Tom picked up the mic in the tower. "Captain Santos, this is Tom Rodriguez, former Navy. It's an honor to have you at the controls." "The pleasure is mine, Tom," Diana replied warmly. "Always good to be recognized by a fellow veteran." Lisa's tears flowed freely. Her voice shook as she spoke. "You don't understand. She left her military career to raise her daughter alone after her wife was killed in combat. She could have been commanding an airline right now, or training the next generation of pilots." Tom's voice cracked as he went on. "We failed to see it sooner, but today, you reminded us what honor really looks like. You carried your country on your shoulders, and then you carried a mop to feed your child. That is not weakness, Diana. That is greatness." The applause swelled until the hangar shook with it. Some veterans stood at attention, saluting her. Others simply let their tears flow freely. Diana swallowed hard, her chest tight with emotion, but she stood tall, saluting them back with the crisp precision of the officer she had never stopped being. News cameras had already begun arriving, tipped off by employees and veterans who had filmed her flawless landing. Journalists shouted her name, but she ignored them. For once, Diana wasn't fighting for recognition. She was standing in her truth. Across town, Jonathan sat in the boardroom, pale and sweating. His phone buzzed with new headlines flashing across the screen. CEO mocks decorated Air Force captain turned single mother, backlash erupts. Viral video sparks boycott of Mitchell Aviation. Board to decide CEO's fate after scandal. Patricia Webb entered the room, followed by other board members, their faces grim. She dropped a thick folder of printed emails and social media posts on the table. The sound was like a gavel striking. "Jonathan," she said, her voice cutting like steel, "your arrogance has cost this company millions overnight. But worse than that, you dragged our name through the mud. We cannot afford to be led by someone who insults heroes while parading his privilege." He opened his mouth to protest, but Patricia raised her hand sharply. "Save it. The decision is unanimous. Effective immediately, you are removed as CEO." The words landed heavier than any blow. Jonathan slumped back in his chair, the empire he thought was untouchable collapsing in real time. Meanwhile, in the hangar, Tom whispered to Diana, "You don't know it yet, but the world has already chosen its side. And it's not with him." At that moment, a little hand tugged at Diana's sleeve. Her daughter, wide-eyed and smiling, whispered, "Mama, are you famous now?" Diana crouched, kissed her forehead, and said softly, "No, baby. I'm just finally being seen for who I really am." The hangar erupted again in applause, not just for her skills as a pilot, but for her courage, resilience, and the dignity she had carried through every trial. For the first time in years, Diana Santos didn't feel invisible. She felt unstoppable. "It's to build something bigger than they could ever imagine," Diana told the host, her voice calm yet filled with quiet strength. "When people try to reduce you, the best answer isn't anger. It's growth. It's standing taller than the smallness that tried to cage you." The podcast clip went viral within hours, shared not only by veterans groups but also by women's organizations, civil rights leaders, and business magazines that now hailed her as a model of resilience and leadership. Meanwhile, Jonathan's life continued to spiral. His name had become synonymous with arrogance and downfall. Tabloids showed pictures of him leaving courtrooms, drowning in lawsuits from shareholders and former employees. Once invited to speak at luxury galas, he now avoided cameras, walking with his head down. But Diana, her world had expanded beyond anything she once thought possible. She was now shaping policy inside the aviation industry, opening scholarship funds for underprivileged youth, and mentoring female pilots who once thought the skies were closed to them. On the second anniversary of her appointment at Apex Aviation, a special ceremony was held in Washington, D.C. She stood on stage in her crisp navy suit, her daughter Leia by her side, as the Secretary of Defense awarded her the Medal of Civilian Service for her contributions to veterans and aviation safety. When the applause thundered, Leia looked up at her mother with eyes full of pride. "Mama," she whispered, "they finally see you the way I always did." Diana bent down, kissed her daughter's forehead, and smiled. "That's all I ever wanted." The cameras flashed. The world watched. But for Diana Santos, the moment wasn't about revenge, or even recognition. It was about finally stepping into her truth, a truth that no prejudice, no arrogance, and no viral humiliation could ever erase. She had been a soldier. She had been a cleaner. And now, she was a leader. And through it all, she had proven one unshakable truth: dignity always flies higher than arrogance. Jonathan had tried to bring her down, but in the end, he only raised her higher. With her new job, Diana's daughter, Leia, now had full health coverage and a guaranteed path to the best schools. At a class presentation, Leia proudly shared, "My mom always told me that people should be judged by their character, not their job title. She showed me that dignity isn't about what you do, but how you do it." Her words spread online and touched thousands of hearts. A year after the scandal, Apex Aviation had become the country's most respected private aviation company, thanks to the values of fairness and merit Diana brought into leadership. Under her division, hundreds of new pilots were trained, many of them veterans and young people from minority backgrounds who had once been shut out of the industry. Meanwhile, Jonathan Mitchell's world had collapsed. Reduced to living in a rented room and working as a small-time consultant, he sometimes caught glimpses of Diana's achievements on the news. In those quiet moments, even he had to admit he had gravely underestimated her, not just her skills, but her remarkable strength of character. Business schools soon began using Diana's journey as a case study in leadership, bias, and resilience. Yet for her, the greatest victory wasn't the money, the job title, or even the awards. It was something much more personal, knowing that every night when she tucked Leia into bed, her daughter would grow up believing that character, hard work, and dignity always outshine privilege and arrogance. In her speeches, Diana often shared one lesson with audiences. When someone tries to belittle you, remember, they're only showing the limits of their own vision, not yours. Use that as your fuel to rise higher than they ever imagined. And so, her story left behind a message that was simple, but unforgettable. Never underestimate the person cleaning the floor you walk on. They may be the one who teaches you what true greatness, humility, and victory really mean. If this story inspired you, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more powerful real-life stories that remind us adversity can become opportunity, prejudice can turn into strength, and dignity will always triumph over arrogance.